Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Today's story is called She Left Me for Her Career, 5 years later. We met at a conference and she broke down in tears. The last time I saw her, she said, "You'll be fine. You always are funny." That sentence haunted me more than the fact she walked out with 2 suitcases and a one-way ticket to someone else's version of success. But today she cried in front of 200 people, a mic clipped to her blazer, mascara catching the corner of her eye, and me, just a ghost in the audience, chewing on a mint I suddenly couldn't swallow. Let's rewind. The lights in the conference hall were nauseating, white, sterile, buzzing like a dentist's office. I was early, not for her, just for the free coffee. I had no idea she'd be there. It wasn't in the schedule. Her name hadn't been listed. But the second I heard her voice echo from backstage, commanding, confident, carved from the same sharp edge that once told me I was too predictable, I felt my body lock up like I was being mugged by the past. I didn't turn around right away. I stared at the screen showing the title of her keynote, Risk, Vision, and the Reinvention of Self. Of course, when she stepped on stage, the audience clapped. I didn't. My hands were in my lap, fingers curling into my palms like my body didn't trust what it was seeing. She started speaking. Bold, measured, as if she hadn't shattered someone's life 5 years ago just to become the reinvented self she was now preaching about. Then it happened. One moment, she was delivering a line about ambition. The next, she went quiet, completely still, her eyes scanning the crowd and stopping. On me. I didn't flinch. I wanted her to see. I wanted her to remember the man she left behind like a file deleted off a desktop. Her mouth moved like she wanted to say my name, but no sound came out. Then the tremble, then the tears. She turned away from the mic and stepped off stage. Gasps, whispers. A room full of professionals confused about what just happened. Her assistant rushed out. Someone tried to fill the silence with an awkward joke about technical difficulties. But I just sat there. Because for 5 years, I had been the technical difficulty in her perfect narrative. And now, in one silent stare, she'd glitched. And part of me, an ugly part, enjoyed it. The email came at 2:14 a.m. I was lying in a hotel bed that smelled like new carpet and old mistakes, still wearing the badge from the conference around my neck, like some idiot who didn't know how to let go. I had replayed the moment on stage over and over again in my head, how her voice cracked, how she turned away like the room had swallowed her whole. I told myself it didn't matter, that I'd moved on, that she was just another speaker on a schedule I never asked for. But then I saw it. From Lynette Mayers. Subject, can we talk? I didn't open it for a solid 15 minutes, just stared at it. I thought about deleting it. I thought about forwarding it to myself with the subject line changed to, don't. But I opened it. I don't know if I even have the right to write you, but I saw you today. I didn't expect that. I wasn't ready. I left the stage because, well, you know why. If you're still here, can we meet? Just for coffee. No expectations. I just need to say something. No expectations. She always said that when she had expectations. When she left, she told me I'd understand one day. Now, apparently, that day had arrived, wrapped in guilt and caffeine. I didn't reply, not then. I turned off my phone and stared at the hotel ceiling, like it might peel itself back and offer me a better option than revisiting her version of closure, but I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how she looked, not just successful, not just polished, but hollow, like someone who had climbed so high she forgot what the ground felt like. At 8:06 a.m., I replied, 10 a.m., lobby cafe. She was already there when I arrived. 2 black coffees sat untouched between us like diplomatic offerings. Her hair was pinned up, her suit immaculate, but her hands trembled around the mug like a teenager waiting for a breakup. I panicked, she said before I even sat down. When I saw you, I stayed silent. I didn't want to make it easy. She looked at me, really looked. You look good, she said softly, like that would somehow erase the fact that she'd vanished from my life without so much as a phone call after boarding that plane 5 years ago. I finally spoke. What do you want, Lynette? And then came the sentence I'll never forget. I didn't come here to say sorry. I came to tell you the truth. I didn't leave just for my career. I left because I couldn't be with you knowing what I had already done. I blinked. My chest tightened. What did you do? She looked away, her voice barely a whisper. There was someone else. I just sat there, staring at her across the table like I'd forgotten how to blink. Her words lingered in the air longer than they should have, like smoke in a room with no windows. There was someone else, and the way she said it, flat, almost mechanical, made it worse. Like it wasn't some scandalous confession but a business report. She didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She just sipped her coffee like she'd told me the weather. I think part of me hoped she would say it was emotional, not physical, that it had been a fantasy, a connection she mistook for something more during one of her many late-night work sessions. But no, she clarified quickly, like she could sense where my mind had gone. It was real. It happened more than once. I justified it at the time by telling myself you weren't ambitious enough to understand me. I convinced myself you were holding me back. I thought... She stopped herself. I shook my head. You thought I was an anchor, I said, finishing the sentence for her. But really, I was the map. That shut her up. For the first time, she actually looked guilty. And yeah, maybe I got some petty satisfaction from that. But it didn't last, because then she told me who it was. Not a stranger, not a boss, not some coworker from another office. It was David, my college roommate, my so-called friend. The guy who stood next to me at our wedding and toasted us with cheap champagne and overconfident words about forever. I hadn't spoken to him in years, not since he moved to Austin for a fresh start and fell off the grid. Now I knew why. I pushed my chair back and stood up without a word. She reached for my arm, pleading, but I stepped away. I told myself I wasn't going to make a scene, not in a hotel lobby full of early morning travelers and tired tech consultants. But I wanted to scream, not because she cheated. No, it wasn't just that. It was the deliberateness of it, the planning, the way she left me while I was still loving her. Why tell me now? I asked, barely able to hear myself over my own heartbeat. Because, she said, he's gone. And I'm not sure I ever chose. Right, I didn't sit back down. I couldn't. My legs weren't just shaking. They felt like they didn't belong to me. That hotel cafe, with its piped-in jazz and overly polished floors, suddenly felt like the last place on earth I wanted to be. And yet, I stood there, still stupid stuck, because part of me needed to hear the rest, needed to know just how deep the knife had gone, and how long it had been twisting inside me without my knowing. He's gone? I asked, not sure if I meant gone as in dead or just disappeared, but part of me didn't care which. Her eyes dropped to the table, then back to me. He left. About a year ago. No calls, no emails, just gone. And I knew, the second I found out he wasn't coming back, that I had made a choice I could never undo. I swallowed hard, my throat dry and hot. Did you love him? She didn't answer right away, and somehow that pause hurt more than a yes ever could. I thought I did, but I was confusing the high of something new with the feeling of being right. She reached for her coffee again, but her hand trembled, and she stopped midway. He told me I was wasting my life with you. Said you'd never understand people like us, ambitious people. I let out a small, humorless laugh. He convinced you I was the obstacle. And you believed him? She nodded slowly. He told me if I came with him, we'd build something better. That we were destined to succeed together. And for a while, it really did feel that way. I got promoted. We moved into a sleek apartment. He took me to charity galas and company dinners. I thought I had finally arrived. Her voice cracked. But he wasn't building a future. He was borrowing one. From me, I tilted my head, trying to process. What do you mean? She looked up at me, and for the first time since that day she left, I saw fear in her eyes. Not guilt, not regret. Fear. He used me. For my name, my connections, my salary. When his startup tanked, he drained our joint account and disappeared. Everything he said to me, every promise, it was a scam. And I saw it too late. I should have felt vindicated. Should have let that cold sense of justice sink in and satisfy whatever pain I'd been carrying for the last 5 years. But all I felt was exhausted and worse. I felt like part of me still cared, and I hated that. Why are you telling me this? I asked. She hesitated. Because I think I'm still paying for what I did to you. And I need to know if you ever stopped hating me. I didn't answer. Not yet. I wasn't even sure if I knew the truth. I was already halfway out of the cafe when I heard her call my name again. not loudly, but with that old softness she used to use when she was scared of what I'd say. I turned, reluctantly, and that's when she pulled it from her purse. A plain white envelope, wrinkled at the corners, the flap sealed but yellowed with time. She held it out like it was fragile, like it could explode. "He left this," she said, "the night he vanished." I stared at it, not moving. "And you waited how long to show it to me?" She hesitated. "I couldn't open it for a long time. When I finally did, I wanted to burn it, but part of me thought, maybe you should see it too." She placed it on the table between us and didn't say another word. I didn't touch it, not at first. I just sat back down and looked at it the way you'd look at an old scar you thought had faded, until the right kind of light brought it back to the surface. Finally, I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typewritten, no greeting, no signature, just blunt surgical sentences. She was never mine. She was always reaching backward, even when she slept. Her guilt made her generous. I took what I could. You probably think she loved me. She didn't. She just didn't want to be you. But I couldn't be you either. I thought using her would fix that. It didn't. Goodbye? I didn't breathe for a moment. It felt like being punched in the stomach by someone who knew exactly where your weakest spot was. "He hated me," I muttered. "He didn't even want you. He just wanted to prove I was replaceable." Lynette was already crying before I finished the sentence. "I was so blind," she said. "I thought he loved me. I thought I was making a brave choice, but I wasn't. I was just escaping. And you were the collateral damage." I folded the letter and pushed it back toward her. "You didn't bring me here just for closure," I said. "You could have emailed that. You wanted something else." Her silence said everything. "You want to come back," I whispered. "Don't you?" She didn't nod. She didn't speak. But her eyes said yes. And that terrified me more than anything she'd confessed so far. She didn't say the words, but she didn't need to. Her silence was loaded, like a chambered bullet she was too afraid to fire. I sat back and tried to breathe normally, but my chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped rope around my ribs. The idea of her wanting to come back wasn't just absurd, it was offensive. She'd scorched everything between us, and now she was hoping to walk back through the ashes without so much as a limp. "So what is this?" I asked. "You found out he used you, and now I'm the safety net? The consolation prize?" She winced. "Good. No," she said finally. "That's not what I cut her off. "Then what do you want from me, Lynette? Because if it's forgiveness, you're 5 years and one best friend too late." Her eyes didn't leave mine. "I want a second chance. Not to fix us, maybe that's impossible, but to own what I ruined. I want to stop pretending it didn't matter." My hands were clenched under the table, knuckles white, but she kept going. "I didn't come to this conference to find you. I swear I didn't even know you'd be here. But when I saw you, it was like the world cracked open and reminded me of who I used to be, and who I destroyed trying to become someone I thought I had to be." She reached into her bag again. Honestly, at this point, I half expected a grenade, and pulled out another envelope. I stared at it like it was cursed. "What is that?" I asked. "A check," she said. "A check for every month I left you cleaning up the wreckage. I added up everything I owed you, from the bills I walked out on to the therapy I assume you needed, but never got. I know money doesn't fix what I broke, but it's something I didn't touch it. I couldn't. I just stared at her and felt something twist in me I hadn't felt in years. Pity. She looked exhausted, not just physically, but in her soul. Like she'd been running from a version of herself for so long, she forgot how to slow down. "You think you're the only one who paid for what happened?" I asked, voice low. "You think cutting a check makes it square?" She blinked, startled. "No, I think it's the only thing I can offer without asking you for something you can't give." I didn't ask what she meant. I already knew. She still loved me, or thought she did. But it wasn't love that brought her to that table. It was grief. And the worst kind of grief. The one that shows up too late, long after the funeral. And the more she talked, the more I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done. I didn't touch the envelope. I didn't even look at it again. I just stared at her and realized how far apart we'd drifted. Not just physically, not even emotionally, but in something deeper. Perspective. We didn't see the same version of our history. She remembered a chapter she abandoned. I remembered an entire book she burned. "I don't want your money," I finally said. My voice was calm, but inside I was cracking in places I didn't know still existed. That's not what I needed. Not then. Not now. Lynette looked like she expected that, but the pain in her eyes told me she'd still hoped otherwise. I leaned forward, elbows on the table, and said something I hadn't even planned. You know what the worst part was? It wasn't you leaving. It wasn't even that it was David. It was that I kept wondering what was wrong with me that made it so easy for you to walk away. Her lips parted, like she wanted to jump in and stop me, but I kept going. I replayed every dinner we had, every argument, every birthday, every stupid Wednesday night when we sat on the couch watching reruns, wondering if you were already gone in your head, wondering if I ever actually mattered, or if I was just the quiet space you filled until something louder came along. She was crying again now, but I wasn't moved by it. I was tired of her tears. They arrived too late. They weren't for me. They were for her guilt, her shame, her broken illusion of herself. I begged you to stay, I continued. Do you remember that? You told me not to be dramatic, that you were doing what was best for both of us. And then you turned around and gave your life to someone who used you like a business transaction. Her hands were shaking on the table, and she looked down at them like she didn't recognize them anymore. I let the silence sit for a beat too long before finishing what I had to say. I'm not angry anymore, Lynette. I promise you that. I'm not bitter, and I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because you asked. But I need you to understand something. I stood up. I spent 5 years rebuilding a version of myself that didn't depend on your approval. I learned to be okay without your love, your words, your presence. And now that I've finally made peace with who I am without you, the last thing I need is a reunion staged by regret. Her lips moved, barely audible. So that's it? That's it, I said. And I walked away. This time, without a single backward glance. A week passed before I heard from her again. I didn't expect to. After that cafe conversation, I thought she'd retreat into the life she'd built from the ashes of ours, quietly accepting the finality I gave her. But on a Thursday morning, as I was folding laundry and feeding my one-eyed cat Maurice, a thin envelope slid through the mail slot. No return address, just my name, written in her careful cursive, the same handwriting that once labeled every drawer in our kitchen when we moved into our first apartment. I opened it slowly. Inside was a single page. No apology this time, no dramatic pleas. Just a few lines that finally felt honest. You were right. It wasn't love I came to reclaim, it was dignity. I needed to face you so I could face myself. Thank you for letting me do that. I hope the life you built is brighter without my shadow in it. You deserve that. Always did. And just like that, it was over. No fireworks, no romantic last-minute reconnection. Just peace. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the man who got left behind. I felt like someone who had made it through, who had been broken, yes, but not destroyed. I had a good job now, nothing glamorous, but it was mine. I had a few close friends, a tiny apartment filled with plants I somehow kept alive, and a quiet that no longer felt like loneliness. I even started dating again, not with desperation, but with ease, with clarity. I didn't need to be saved. I didn't need to prove I was lovable. I just needed to keep being the man I'd slowly, painfully, proudly become. Not every story ends with a reunion. Not every betrayal demands revenge. Sometimes, the best thing you can do is walk away with your head high and your heart intact, knowing that you didn't lose. You grew. And in a world that glorifies dramatic endings, I'll take peace over chaos any day. The end. Now it's your turn. Have you ever been in a situation where someone came back just to confess what they should have told you years ago? Did it help or make it worse? Share your story in the comments below. This has been another true emotional journey on the Reddit Confessions channel. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that start in pain, but lead to strength.